Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody had a nice weekend. So yesterday, Kathleen and I filmed our last episode of 2025 for the From Manhatten to Stars Hollow TBR podcast. And I figured now would be the more appropriate time instead of waiting till December 5th to do my end of year freakout tag video. Basically, what I did for this video was just added onto the mid-year freakout tag video list that I made in June, so I didn't have to make a separate list of prompts. So basically, I am updating all the prompts I did from the mid-year freakout tag to talk about recent books that I've read or recent authors I've discovered. So Kathleen and I actually experienced a lot of burnout with this TBR around the beginning of August. And when we were planning out next year's TBR, we decided not to read as many books. And we also decided that we are not going to be continuing this Friends and Gilmore Girls podcast beyond December 2026 because of scheduling issues and, as I just said, burnout. Ooh, excuse me. So the first category in this in this end of year book tag is favorite nonfiction. And I only own one of these books, which I have right next to me right here, and it is Selma Blair's memoir that came out in March or April. It's called Mean Baby. In this memoir, she talks about, obviously, how she got her start in acting, her friendship that she formed with Reese Witherspoon during making Legally Blonde. She doesn't really talk about being on Friends in here. For those of you who do not remember, Selma Blair played Wendy in The One with the Christmas in Tulsa when Chandler is in Tulsa, Oklahoma for work because his job at the advertising company transfers him over there. And she plays the person who asks Chandler to have an affair with him, and he says no. And when Matthew Perry was approached with this plotline on Friends about cheating on Monica, he said no to it. And I'm glad he stood up for it because I would have hated it if he's right. He was right. His fans would have never forgiven him if he had cheated on Monica. I sure wouldn't have. So, Selma Blair is also a disability rights activist like me. And she talked about her diagnosis and how she deals with her disability. She has multiple sclerosis or MS, and Christina Applegate, who played Rachel's sister Amy, also has multiple sclerosis. And I really love how she talks about how Selma Blair in her book talks about her diagnosis and how she overcomes her struggles with her disability. It's really inspiring, and I hope to inspire people in the same way with telling them about my disabilities. The next updated answer for this book tag I wanted to provide was favorite author debut or new to you. So from earlier this year, my favorite debut authors were Brooke Shields for her memoir, Brooke Shields Is Not Allowed to Get Old, Catherine Cowles for the Sparrow Falls mystery series, Claire Leslie Hall for Broken Country, which I voted for Best Audiobook for the Goodreads Choice Awards, Allegra Goodman, who wrote Isola, which was the Reese's Book Club pick for February, and Linda Holmes, who wrote Evie Drake Starts Over and Flying Solo, which was her release from March. For the updated answer for this book tag, I chose Gail Honeyman, who wrote Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. I recently discovered that this book is listed on a recommendation list for Chandler, and I think this character of Eleanor Oliphant can perfectly describe either Monica or Chandler. The reason why I think this book ties in with Monica's character is because Eleanor has a very similar toxic dynamic with her mother that Monica does. And her mom is not very nice to her, but unlike Monica, she overcomes the situation and gets out of it, which I really was happy about. One thing I don't like about in Friends is how it is never really explained why Judy is so mean to Monica. She briefly hints at it in the episode where the grandmother dies, I'm pretty sure, where she says that she was also undercut a lot by her mother and abused by her the way she treats Monica, but that should be no excuse for how bad Monica was mistreated. I always see this clip come up on Instagram that shows Monica's relationship with her mom and how abusive she is to her. And one thing that always irritated me is how complicit her husband Jack was, because you see in scenes when the two of them, meaning Jack and Monica, are alone together, that they actually have a good relationship, and I wish that the directors of Friends had spent a little more time developing their relationship, because the two episodes where you see glimpses that Jack actually cares about Monica or wants to not be so mean to her, is the one where Nana dies twice, where he's talking to Monica after the grandmother's funeral service about how he wants to be buried at sea, and then the one the first episode of season 3 where Monica breaks up with Richard. At the very end, Jack comes by to check on Monica to see how she's doing in her breakup, and like Monica asks him how Richard is doing, and she's like, he's a mess. And then they talk about it, and Monica falls asleep on the couch, and Jack tucks her in. Like, I wish there had been more scenes like that between Jack and Monica, because it really shows that Jack cares about his daughter, unlike Judy, who doesn't really seem to care about her at all. And that really made me mad. The favoritism. And Jack realizes the favoritism a little bit too late in the episode where there's a leak in the garage and all of Monica's stuff gets damaged. And Ross obviously feels bad that Monica's stuff gets damaged by the rain, but Jack doesn't even seem to notice. And then when he finally does notice, he gets really upset and he decides to give Monica the Porsche. But that should never make up for how abusive they both were to her. He should have really tried a little bit harder to make things right with Monica, besides the 2 conversations that they had. I would have loved to see them bond more, but that never happened as part of the plot. If they had made a spin-off about Monica and Chandler, which never happened, because when they were planning a spin-off of Friends, first Jennifer Aniston was approached, but she said no because she was too busy with her movies. Then they approached Matthew Perry and Courtney Cox about doing a spin-off about Monica and Chandler, and they said no because they were too busy with other projects too. Like, Courtney Cox is probably really busy with the Scream movies, and Matthew Perry was busy with filming the sequel to The Whole 9 Yards, which was really bad. But I really wish they hadn't said no, because we could have either gotten a spin-off about Monica and Chandler about raising their kids, or likewise, we could have also gotten a really great show that talks about Phoebe's backstory, and maybe they could still do that if Lisa Kudrow wanted to, because that would be amazing. But the show that we got after Friends that Lisa Kudrow made, called The Comeback, was not really that good at all. I hated it. I saw her for the first time last year, and I hated it. Anyway, back to the books. Sorry for the small tangent. The first author debut or new to me that the next author I want to talk about is Byron Lane. So, this book was recommended to me by Noah, who works at Print Bookstore. I had asked him to recommend me a book to read about that connects to Carol, the episode where Carol and Susan get married. And I really liked this book. I really hope I can find more books by this author, because I really enjoyed this book a lot. I thought it was really funny. So this book got 4.5 stars, and so did Mean Baby. The next book I wanted to talk about is Luda. So the next recommendation that I asked Noah for was a book that would describe Chandler's dad, who highlights a gay drag show in Las Vegas. Matt and I will actually be watching the episode where Chandler goes to Las Vegas to see his dad's drag show and invite him to the wedding after Thanksgiving, because we rented that series of Friends from the library. So he recommended this book to me. Noah recommended this book to me. It's called Luda, and it is a mystery about a drag queen who I will just read you what this is about. Lucy LeBang is a star. For decades, this flamboyant drag artist has cast a spell over screen and stage. Now she's the leading lady in a smash hit musical. But as time takes its toll, Lucy feels her stars beginning to dim. When Lucy's co-star meets a mysterious accident, a new ingenue shimmies onto the scene. Luda, whose fantastical beauty and sinister charm infatuates Lucy immediately. And a striking resemblance to Lucy herself at a much younger age. Luda begs Lucy to share the secrets of her stardom and to reveal the hidden tricks of her trade. For Lucy LeBang is a mistress of the glamour and mysterious discipline, draws to sex, drugs, and the occult for its trance-like transformative effects. But as Lucy tutors her young protege, their fellow actors and crew members begin meeting with untimely ends. Now Lucy wonders if Luda had mastered the glamour all too well and exploited it to achieve her dark ambitions. What follows is an intoxicating descent into the demimonde of Gazglow, a fantastical city of dreams and nightmarish heart of Luda herself, a femme fatale phenomenon, a monster, and perhaps the brightest star of them all. This book got 5 stars for me, and I can't wait to read more from Grant Morrison. The next new debut or new to me author that I read this year was Julie Olivia. I actually got this book from the library before it was released to the bookstores in September, so I'm not sure how the library got it before the bookstores did. But anyway, so this book has deserved all the hype that it has gotten on YouTube. It is a small town romance that is set in a fictional town called Copper Run, Vermont, set in the late 90s during season 3 of Friends. And Copper Run is very similar to Stars Hollow. These two main characters, Cliff and Michelle, are very much like Luke and Lorelai. Luke is a baker, and he is the baker for the inn that Michelle runs. And the dynamic is kind of reversed here, because in Gilmore Girls, Lorelai is the sunshine, and Luke is the grumpy. But, like, in this book, Cliff is the sunshine, and Michelle is the grumpy. Michelle moves to Copper Run, Vermont to take over the inn her mother used to run after she passes away. So, I really love the dynamic between Cliff and Michelle, and also, Cliff has 2 children named Brittany, and I think the teenager's girl is the teenager's girl's name is Stella, or Brittany is the younger daughter, and the older daughter's name I can't seem to find. But anyway, yes, this book definitely deserves all the hype that it's getting. It's pretty much a 5-star read. The next category I wanted to update for you guys today is biggest disappointment for new releases. So, one of these, first of all, I do not have these books anymore because I either got them from the library or have physical copies of them that I unhauled. The first book I wanted to talk about today is Merry Christmas, You Filthy Animal by Megan Quinn. Kathleen and I both read How My Neighbor Stole Christmas and Merry Christmas, You Filthy Animal. Merry Christmas, You Filthy Animal was released on October 14th. And the thing I did not like about this book was the female main character was very underdeveloped, and that made the relationship not very believable. If the female main character had more depth to her, I would have been able to believe the relationship. I love Megan Quinn's writing style. I love the male main character, but he needed a different girlfriend than this female main character because she was kind of dull. The next book I wanted to talk about is People Watching by Hannah Bonham Young. I was so excited about this book when I first heard about it because one of my top 5-star reads from January of this year was Hannah Bonham Young's book Out on a Limb, because I love the disability rep with Bo and Win. Hannah Bonham Young has the same disability that her female main character has. So I loved the voice. I loved how she used own voices, and I learned a lot about her disability. The disability she had was a limb difference, and she had trouble with her hands. Now, I do not have a limb difference, but I can relate to Win's character because she has a lot of the same dexterity problems that I do have with my cerebral palsy. So I was able to connect to that character in that way. With People Watching, however, much like in If It Makes You Happy, it's a small town setting. This story focuses on Prue, who is in her 20s. She's in college. She's home for this summer, taking care of her mom, who has Alzheimer's, early onset Alzheimer's. Her dad runs the grocery store in town. And I loved the disability rep. I love the small town vibes. Disability rep meaning Alzheimer's. Hannah Bonham Young mentioned in her author's notes for People Watching that the experiences of the female main character were based on her experiences with losing her grandma to Alzheimer's. And I could definitely connect to her in that way. Because as I have mentioned in other videos, I lost both of my grandmothers to Alzheimer's/dementia in 2014 and 2021. So those were the positives of People Watching. The negatives were the rest of the townspeople treated Prue like she was a child when she was 24 years old. And the relationship was not believable because these characters were too focused on having sex. All of their conversations were about having sex, and it was too hyper-fixated on how Prue was a virgin. And also, I did not like Milo, the main male character. He was too much of a playboy. His character name is the same as the actor who plays Jess on Gilmore Girls, but his character as a personality reminds me of Joey from Friends because he's a playboy who is obsessed with, well, I don't know if Joey is really obsessed with sex, but he's a player, and so is this guy. Milo. So I gave Merry Christmas, You Filthy Animal 3.5 stars, and People Watching 2.5 stars. The other disappointing new release I wanted to mention tonight is called The Gingerbread Bakery. I have the ebook about this. I have the ebook copy of this book on my Apple Books app. So this is the 4th book in the Dream Harbor series, which starts with the Pumpkin Spice Cafe. I did not like the couple in this book, especially the female main character. Her name is Annie. Mac I liked, but I think he deserved way better than Annie because she annoyed the crap out of me. And so I think that the Gingerbread Bakery and The Christmas Tree Farm, which is the third book in this series, really should have been novellas, because there is no reason for the plots of those two books to be dragged out for as long as they were. So, each book in this series is based on a business that is in this small town, which is in Canada. It's called Dream Harbor. The first book is called The Pumpkin Spice Cafe, which I gave 4 stars to. The third book was called The Christmas Tree Farm, which I also liked. No, I didn't. I gave that book 3 stars. I gave The Strawberry Patch Pancake House, which was book 4 stars. I gave this book, The Gingerbread Bakery, which I was just saying should have been a novella, because the relationship between Mac and Annie just seemed too dragged out to me. 3.5 stars. And I'm trying to remember. Google. Here we go. Come on. I don't want to buy it. Oh. The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore was all. So, book 1 is a Pumpkin Spice Cafe. 4.5 stars. Book 2 is the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, which is 4 stars also. The Christmas Tree Farm, which is book 3, in this book that I'm talking about right now. The Gingerbread Bakery got 3.5 stars, and the Strawberry Patch Pancake House, which was the new release in this series from March, got 4 stars. So this book is coming out with a novella called The Apple Pie Ice Cream Parlor, and then the final book in the series is coming out in, I believe, March or something like that. Or maybe the final book is coming out in March and the novella is coming out in the summer, because it's about an ice cream parlor. But regardless, I think this series is going on for too long. And personally, I remember when Destiny Sidwell was reviewing The Strawberry Patch Pancake House back in March, and she was saying that the writing was starting to get really repetitive with that book, which came out in March. And, based on what she said about that book, it carries over to this book. I think the writing in this series is really starting to suffer, because it's starting to get very repetitive to me. So I'm actually really glad this series is almost over. Even though I have been ranking most of the books pretty high, the writing at this point is really starting to suffer, in my opinion. The next book I wanted to talk... Oh, okay, so the next category I wanted to talk about is the recent update I added to the standout books with topics that have not aged well was 13 Ways of Looking at a Fat Girl. So this book was Mona Awad's debut. She writes a lot of horror books like Rogue and Bunny and All's Well. So I have read all of those. I'm still waiting for the sequel of Bunny, We Love You, Bunny, to come in at the library. So, where do all of her books rate that I have read? I recently reread Bunny in preparation for the sequel coming out. And when I originally read it, I had to DNF it because I think my problem was at that time I was reading too many other books. And I wasn't really focused on that book and zeroing in on it. But once I reread it in October, when I wasn't reading so many other books at the same time, I really found myself enjoying it. I loved the setting. I loved the character dynamics between this group, the bunnies, reminds me of the group of girls in the movie Heathers, or even the plastics in Mean Girls. So Bunny focuses on a elite MFA program at a college a fictitious college in New England. Like, the college is similar to Yale University, or it doesn't even say, like, what state in New England it's in. It just says it's in New England. And I really love the setting. I love that it's set in a creative writing program because I'm a creative writer. I love to write short stories and poetry. So I'm excited to read We Love You, Bunny, because it's kind of like a prequel and a sequel to Bunny, which is an interesting dynamic to focus on. So originally when I DNF'd Bunny, I gave it 2.5 stars. But then once I went back to finish it, I gave it 4 stars. Because the first time I read it, I didn't give it a fair enough chance. All's Well is focused on a college theater professor who has chronic pain, who is putting on a production of All's Well by William Shakespeare. And I read this book earlier in the year from Manhatten to Stars Hollow TBR, and the character from Gilmore Girls this book describes is Paris when she directs Romeo and Juliet in season 2 episode 9, Runaway Little Boy. 4.5 stars for chronic pain rep and the fact that it's about putting on a play, because I'm a theater person. And then with Rogue, that was kind of like a horror murder mystery type book that I gave 4 stars to, which I'm rereading again for Winterween, Gabby Reeves' winter horror marathon. With 13 Ways for Looking at a Fat Girl, our main protagonist in this book is named Elizabeth, who has issues with her weight. And this book was a really big downer. I had to DNF it at 42% because I was fearful that if I continued it, I would be put into a really bad reading slump. But how this book connects to Friends is that in the flashback episodes of Friends, when Monica and Rachel are still in high school, Monica is overweight, and this girl, like Monica, has issues with her weight. So, reading this book made me wonder, how Monica would have dealt with being overweight, and if her point of view would have been the same of this main character, Elizabeth. So that is something I might explore maybe in my fan fiction, or just in another creative writing exercise that's not even related to fan fiction. The next updated category is favorite new release. Besides If It Makes You Happy, another book that I have right here next to me is Sounds Like Love by Ashley Poston. This is Ashley Poston's release from June, I think. I think this came out on June 15th. And this focuses on a musician named Joni, who goes back to her hometown because her mother has does her mother have dementia? I don't even remember if her mother has dementia. But she goes back to her hometown because her family's music venue is closing, and she is a struggling songwriter. So the thing that's really cool about this book is that each chapter title is a title of a song. So, for example, chapter 9 is called Crash Into Me, which is by Matchbox 20. Chapter 13 is called Out of My Head, Was I Out of My Mind? Chapter 14 is called I'm Just a Cheeseburger in Paradise, which is by Jimmy Buffett. And the final example I'm going to give is I've Got a Blank Space Baby and I'll Write Your Name, and obviously that's Blank Space by Taylor Swift. So yeah, this book was a lot of fun. I gave it 4.5 stars. And I already answered the discussion question about burnout, but let's see if there's another one I can talk about. Oh, right, I was right. Joni's mother is in the early stages of dementia, so I'll answer that question. The disease is nicknamed the long goodbye because of how cruel and slow it is. How does Joni learn about her mom's diagnosis, and how does she adapt to her mom's new needs? So, I really thought the dementia plot in this book was really well done, and that Ashley Poston did a really good job with it. Once Joni discovers her mother's diagnosis, I think the best way she adapts to it is to help her mother remember that music was a big part of their lives, and that's one thing that she does. And I think that also probably inspires her song that she ends up writing. So this book was really beautiful, and like with people watching, I like how dementia is talked about in here respectfully. There's another book that Gabby Rees talked about that came out recently that does not really talk about dementia very respectfully, which I'm not going to read or review because it makes me mad how dementia is so disparaged. I will, if I remember the title, I'll mention it in the comments. Movie that made me laugh was Freakier Friday. So this is the sequel to Freaky Friday that came out on August 8th, starring Jamie Lee Curtis, Lindsay Lohan, and Chad Michael Murray from Gilmore Girls and One Tree Hill. So my favorite scene in this movie was when it was when Tess and Anna's body goes to the music store and starts to hit on Jake, who is played by Chad Michael Murray. So in the original movie Freaky Friday, Jake is the good-looking guitar player of another band that competes against Anna's band. And I just loved the chemistry in that scene between Lindsay Lohan and Chad Michael Murray. It was great. So if you haven't seen Freakier Friday, please check it out. It is now on Disney+. series I am looking most forward to completing is Beartown by Friedrich Bachmann right now. Book number 2, Us Against You, is currently on my 10 Before the End TBR, and it has not come in at the library yet. Hopefully it will come in soon. I'm also hoping to complete the Sparrow Fall series by Catherine Cowles. The last book in that series was released on October 28th, so I'm very excited to finish that series. The next series I'm excited to start reading is called Ember Falls by Corinne Michaels. I found out about this series by a person on Instagram who was posting about Friends books that reminded them of Friends characters, and they paired, I don't remember who posted about this book, but they paired this couple up with Monica and Chandler, so I'm really excited to see how that book compares to them. And I also discovered a new YouTuber named Tori. Her channel name is Novel Life, who reads this author, Corinne Michaels, and says that this series is really good, so I'm really excited about it. Another series that I'm excited to finish is Spoons Oregon, the series with Savor It. So I have read Savor It and Left Up Forever, and both of those books have gotten 4 stars. The third and final book in this series, called Lost and Found, is coming out in July. So me and Kathleen are planning to read that as soon as it comes out, and we're very excited. The characters that are most books with a character that best fits a character from a show. If It Makes You Happy, Lorelai and Luke, obviously. Luda is Chandler's dad. What's his name again? I can't remember his name. Big Gay Wedding, Carol and Susan. And then Sounds Like Love is Phoebe. And then in A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping, that couple is also reminds me of Luke and Lorelai. So, If It Makes You Happy was on the Goodreads Choice Awards list for romance books, and I had a hard time picking on which book I was going to vote for, but another book that was on this TBR that I ended up deciding to vote for was One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune. The character that this main female character reminds me of, her name is Alice, and she reminds me of Monica. She was my favorite character in a book that I have read by Carly Fortune. This is the second book in the Barry's Bay series, it starts with Every Summer After. I really loved how much Charlie, the male main character in this book, matured between Every Summer After and One Golden Summer. And Carly Fortune is coming out with a new book next summer. I believe it's coming out in May. So that's really in the spring. But, I don't know if this is like book 3 in this series with Barry's Bay or if it's a totally new series, but if it's another book in the series with One Golden Summer, I really hope they develop Charlie and Alice's relationship more, because I want to see what happens next for them. As I was saying when I was talking about 13 Ways of Looking at a Fat Girl, Elizabeth makes me think of Monica, and then I think that's it, right? Yes, that's about it. So, another piece of news that I have regarding this TBR is actually not related to anything you're reading, but I received the proof copy of the fan fiction I'm selling at my art show on December 12th. It's called Welcome to Star Valley. So this is a fan fiction that is loosely based off of Friends and Gilmore Girls. So this fan fiction focuses on seasons 8 to 10 of Friends and seasons 2 to 5 of Gilmore Girls. And the main premise of the story is that it focuses on my main character, Jennifer's relationship with her cousin Trinity, who is loosely based off of Paris Geller, and her cousin Savannah, who is her best friend from, so Savannah is Richard Burke's granddaughter, who is her best friend from Westchester Academy, and then Ariana is Lane Kim's character, and Gianna is Rory Gilmore's character. So basically, the characters in my fan fiction go through all of the events that the characters in Gilmore Girls and Friends go through, like in the last. So, like, example is one of the chapters is about when they go to the beach on spring break. One of the chapters is about the house party that Lane's band plays at. In that chapter, you get to meet Richard's son, Tim, who is Savannah's dad, and his wife, Isabel, who is an original character who is loosely based off of Isabel Fuentes from Fools Rush In. So if you haven't guessed yet, this fan fiction was written as a spin-off to the Matthew Perry fan fiction anthology that I spent a lot of time for the past year and a half on. This spin-off to Uncle Chandler, I Love You, as I was saying, focuses on seasons 8 to 10 of Friends and seasons 2 to 5 of Gilmore Girls. So this fan fiction will be for sale at my art show, and I will be accepting pre-orders up until the day of the art show on December 12th. So if you have already pre-ordered a copy of Welcome to Star Valley, thank you very much. And I should be receiving the copies soon and mailing them out or distributing to the people that I will be seeing in person. And then the art show for DoubleHouse is going to be on December 12th at 122 Spring Street in Portland from 5:30 to 7:30. Please come support our collective. We are celebrating our 4-year anniversary. Our theme for our art show is the 4 elements, and we also had a juried art contest with people from the community. So I'm very excited to see everything come together for this art show between the art that we made and the art that the community members submitted. So this is going to be so great. Please come support our art collective. Have a great night. Bye.